Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another edition of the Log Show here on YouTube. We got a little fancy here, guys, as we get an upgrade here in my basement. We get some lighting down here for those of you who do actually watch on YouTube, so it can look a little bit better for the clips, for everything. Just crisp up the image a little bit. So we got that going, thankfully. So here we are now, finally back and finally, I don't know if finally is the right word I should use for this, but sadly, we've come to the end of the NFL season and the NFL playoffs are underway this week, or as we have hit the NFL wildcard round. So some seasons, like for my New Orleans Saints, for my fellow New York Giants fans, New York Jets fans, our seasons are over, but there are many teams who still have Super Bowl hopes out there. There are 14 teams left, 7 in the NFC, 7 in the AFC that are still vying and hoping to raise that Lombardi to end the year. While on the other side of it, as that was a great Monday for some people, it was also Black Monday in the NFL, as some people like to call it, where we saw many head coaches get fired. There are now 6 open head coaching positions in the NFL after Monday. The Falcons, Cardinals, Browns, and Raiders all join the Titans and Giants in the search for a new head coach to lead them into the 2027 NFL season. We will talk about the Giants head coaching search and how where I kind of rate that job overall with the 6 jobs. Not only that, maybe jobs that might open up depending on results this week. Should the Jets join that group, in my opinion, I'll talk about. And then obviously, I will talk about what is on every NFL fan's mind this week, and that is the NFL playoffs. Um, I mean, it's been a crazy year, a very, very good year. We ended the year too on a great note with such a great game, that Steelers Ravens game where we saw Tyler Loop sadly miss or for some people, sadly, for some people, thankfully, miss that field goal to end the game and send the Pittsburgh Steelers into the playoffs and not send the Ravens into the playoffs. Um, this was like I said, this was a year where week after week, I felt like we were consistently talking about like, oh my God, is this the game of the year? Oh my God, is this the game of the year? Oh my God, is this the game of the year? And it ended with another banger. On Saturday, we had a few good ones with the Panthers and the Buccaneers. That whole situation got interesting, and it came down to a game between my Saints and the Atlanta Falcons, where the Falcons won that game. So the Panthers, despite a loss on Saturday, still squeezed into the playoffs after losing to Baker Mayfield. We saw the Seahawks and 49ers in a really slow rolling game uh, squeeze out the NFC West in Santa Clara. And it was just a really, really fun week 18. For those of you who had your fantasy championships this week instead of last week, congratulations. For those of you who have won, for those of you who have lost, I am sorry. To the champion of my league, Sean, if you do ever listen to this, I'm sorry, man. We made a bet, bro. We said we all give you money, including second place, who was supposed to get their money back. Throw it on a touchdown score. Throw it on an anytime touchdown score. And he went Jaylen Warren. Jaylen Warren did not score in that Sunday night game. So that was a rough one for him. I don't know if he actually did bet it. Someone fact check that for me if anybody knows. But in my fantasy league, if anybody knows that, someone fact check that for me, please. But besides that, yeah, what a game that was to end week 18. We saw a Pittsburgh Steelers team that, a lot of people had Mike Tomlin on the hot seat, especially if he walked into a game at home against a Ravens team that is somewhat struggling, a Lamar Jackson that, do we really know whether he was 100% healthy after missing the week beforehand? A lot of questions about the Ravens defense. There's a lot going on about that Ravens team, but as well as playing a very good Derrick Henry, who's very good, especially in the month of December, has been following that trend, has had a very good December on his birthday. So, that adds a little extra motivation, an extra chip on the shoulder of Derrick Henry going into that game. But nonetheless, it would have been a very, very, very loud thing to happen for the Pittsburgh Steelers to then lose that game against that Baltimore Ravens team at home with the division on the line after losing to the Browns the week before, where if you just won against the Browns, this game wouldn't have even been for the division. So there was a lot of question marks going into that game and a lot of potential noise on the side of the Pittsburgh Steelers with the loss. And honestly, a lot of noise on the side of whichever team lost, it seems like, because you're hearing that same noise out of Baltimore with John Harbaugh. A lot of people in Baltimore are very, very tired of the John Harbaugh reign. And it's sad to hear that happen because I'm someone who is a very big fan of John Harbaugh and what John Harbaugh has been able to build down there in Baltimore. As well as I'm a huge fan of Mike Tomlin. I will argue that I saw with a loss, I saw the Steelers moving on from Tomlin as a smarter decision than if the Ravens were to sit here and fire Harbaugh today. And the reason I personally say that is, when I personally go back to it and I look at it and I look at like John Harbaugh overall, I know a lot of people don't like his record in close games, but overall, like with the Ravens, since he's taken over, he he's 180 and 12. He's 13 and 11 in the playoffs. He has a Super Bowl. He he's one of the most successful. He's one of the most winning head coaches since he's taken over in Baltimore. He had all those stints as a special teams coach beforehand when he got hired as the Ravens head coach. But since through this season, since then he's done very well, and just a lot of people don't really love the fact that he's lost a lot of these close games. But I don't know. I argue when you look back at the Ravens loss, because the Ravens losses over these past few years that are very, very heartbreaking. I've been, the internet alone, even if I didn't want to do research, the internet alone has been kind of showing me these plays and how rough it's been for Ravens fans over these past, 4, 5, almost 6 seasons. And a lot of people are wanting to blame John Harbaugh for that. But y- I don't know how much of it you necessarily can just blame John Harbaugh for, where like Zay Flowers last year fumbling is on the goal line. Is that John Harbaugh's fault? Um, Lamar Jackson underperforming in some of these games. Like John Harbaugh's not on the field playing, and I know that when and I have to do deeper research into it because I didn't really. I'll be honest, I did a lot of my research going into the show on the playoffs. I didn't expect to go on such a little bit of a rant here about John Harbaugh and the coaching decisions. But I just I'm someone that, I'll go back to it in a little bit and I'll do my due diligence, but I haven't seen the proof yet that John Harbaugh should be fired. Um his record in close games isn't too terrible, but that that is the problem, and that's what people don't love. Um is people want him to be great in close games. He's not terrible. And, I sound really, really like I don't know what I'm talking about here because, like I said, I haven't done my due diligence on the deep part of why or why not John Harbaugh should be or shouldn't be fired. Because from my gut feeling and from what I have seen over the years of John Harbaugh and Ravens teams over and over again, there have been teams and defenses and it's parts of Ravens teams that are just the small things that I feel like they do consistently that a change of regime, it scares me that you risk losing those types of things. You risk losing someone who knows how to win, whether that be now recently you argue that he has lost his ways, especially since 2020 his record is not as good as pre 2020. And when you really look into it, what I was trying to get to before is Ravens teams, I feel like when I look at it, have always done the small things right, in my opinion. I feel like the Ravens are a team who always have good special teams. And obviously, yes, John Harbaugh being a former special teams coach, they should. But the Ravens are always a team that um it isn't very penalized on dumb penalties. Obviously they'll have a false start here and there, or an offsides, or a holding, or a pass interference that you could argue what was the defender supposed to do, and those types of penalties that just happen to teams. But you don't see a lot of personal fouls in Baltimore anymore, and those types of things that um they've always been known as a hard-nosed football team, but a disciplined football team, and I feel that same way about Tomlin. The reason why I feel like I saw the release of Tomlin, if you let Tomlin go, is more of the fact that Tomlin hasn't always won the division, yet he has always stayed afloat, and I like that. And Tomlin does have a winning record, and he is better. He is good in close games, but Mike Tomlin, the only reason why I felt like it could be the time to go is because you're bringing in a new young quarterback as well there, and you're doing a lot of different things. If Aaron decides to retire, you're bringing in a new young quarterback. That's why I could have saw the changes, bring someone new in with your new young quarterback. But that's all I really have to say about that. Because nonetheless, the Steelers win a barn burner. You have the Boswell missed extra point there. Sorry, I'm coming over being sick here. So I apologize for the raspiness in my voice today on the pod here. But yeah, but since we're talking about it, I'll talk about the head coaches first, if I'm going to be honest here. I'll talk about those 6 head coaching vacancies and where I rank my opinion um off the top of my head, thinking about the rosters and the draft positioning and a lot of that, of what's for these teams. Who do I have as the top, the best job, not the best job, you know what I mean? The sixth best job to the best job, in my opinion, head coaching wise, right? Just to remind you guys, if you guys didn't hear me at the beginning of the show, the 6 coaching jobs available are the Cleveland Browns, the Atlanta Falcons, the Arizona Cardinals, the Las Vegas Raiders, the Titans, and the New York Giants are your 6 current open head coaching positions. Um, and I'll start it with the bottom of the list because I'll run over them quickly. I do feel like right now the worst of those teams is probably the Cleveland Browns. You don't know necessarily whether you have your quarterback in Cleveland in Shador Sanders. I'm assuming whoever they bring in is going to want to, like I'm assuming whoever they decide to bring in is going to be somebody on the side of Shador Sanders. I'm assuming in the head coaching search in Cleveland that you are going to want to try to find a guy that wants to coach Shador Sanders. And it's going to be fun to throw out there, and I'm going to throw it out there just for fun, that when you looked at the Cleveland Browns the last few weeks of the season, you know, there is a guy who is a head coach that happens to be the quarterback's dad that would love to coach his son in the NFL, that was around the locker room a lot more, it seemed like, towards the end of the season, who is a head coach at a Division One program, who has done some impressive things, not necessarily the greatest things. He hasn't won national championships or anything like that, but has done some impressive things there in Colorado as a head coach. So the thought pattern of Deion Sanders becoming an NFL head coach and kind of going to Cleveland is fun. But I would say, currently looking at everything of the 6 head coaching jobs available, I would say that is probably the least desirable. Second on the list, I'd probably put the Arizona Cardinals, because you don't really know what you're doing with Kyler Murray quite yet. Are you moving on from Kyler Murray? Is this the time that you decide to move on from Kyler Murray? You don't know. So you don't know. that's the decision of the head coach, and that's the decision of the Arizona Cardinals looking forward in this new hiring process. Is, are you going to bring in a guy similar to Cleveland's situation? Is, are you going to bring in a guy to have a playbook that highlights Kyler Murray's strengths, you know, hides Kyler Murray's weaknesses, really lets Kyler Murray maybe get out of the pocket a little bit more, use his legs, not struggle because he can't see over his O line, and get out of the pocket, use some bootlegs so he could see the field and get that ball downfield? Or are you going to look for a dude who's going to bring in a young guy who's going to bring in his own guy to fit his own system? And you're going to move into the next era of the Arizona Cardinals, past the Kyler Murray era, whoever that may be. That is your next decision as the head coach as the Arizona Cardinals. So there's a lot of question marks, I feel like there. You had Marvin Harrison have a huge down year over there in Arizona. Defensively, they did not have a great year as a 3-win team. Again, I do want to say you look at draft capital. If you don't love the whole Kyler Murray situation, you're sitting at third overall. So, depending on how much you love this draft class, you have capital to either trade back, get an O lineman, and get draft capital for next year when you really want a quarterback, or maybe take a shot on one of the dudes at the top of this draft, depending on how the combine turns out. We always have one of those dudes who performs well in the combine, who that may be this year. Who knows? It could be a Trinidad Shambles. It could be a Garrett Nussmeier. There's a lot of potential out there in the college football world that we could see somebody really skyrocket up here because of the need of a quarterback for the Arizona Cardinals, because there's somebody that maybe the new head coach of the Arizona Cardinals very much likes. Um, so that is, I would say, out of these jobs, the fifth most desirable job, in my opinion. But we're a lot more desirable than the Cleveland Browns, I think, because you have a lot. Um, I don't think you have as much to pressure as the Arizona Cardinals head coach to make this Kyler Murray decision as you do with the Shador decision. I think if you make this Shador decision incorrectly, you're looked at pretty poorly there in Cleveland, because Stefanski did it with Baker. And if a head coach comes in and does the same thing with Shador, I don't think Cleveland Brown fans are going to be very, very, very happy. Whereas I feel like a lot of people, I think the consensus around the league is the fact that Kyler Murray's season, or not season, career with the Arizona Cardinals is really on the downslope. It's on its last legs. So for you to take that risk now as an Arizona Cardinals head coach, I don't think would be a crazy thought. Even if it might not turn out necessarily great, I don't think you're going to be held as much on a poster board as you're the one who made that decision as the guy in Cleveland is going to be. Now, looking at these final four jobs, it gets really, really interesting to me. With the Raiders, Giants, Titans, and Falcons. The reason I say that is the Falcons, a lot of people, um, I feel like, all right, I put those other three in a different position. I put the Cardinals and the Falcons kind of in an even spot. I put the Falcons slightly over just because I think they have a better roster all around. I think when you make the comparisons to young wide receiver, I'm taking Drake London over Marvin Harrison Jr. any day of the week as of right now. Kyle Pitts just had arguably a breakout year. If you want to bring him back, you can. He's only a restricted free, he's a free agent. So you have the decision to bring back Kyle Pitts if you want to, where he finally had that breakout year going into a contract year. You have players like Bijan Robinson. You have a defense that was a very good defense. You were an 8-win team there. Um, Under Raheem Morris and that GM in Atlanta. So I think that Atlanta job is a lot more desirable than it is Arizona, just because I think the roster that you're taking over where is a lot better, where I do think that you are in similar quarterback conversations in Atlanta that you are in Arizona. I think the questions of Michael Penix are getting very, very loud over there in Arizona. I don't think a lot of people are starting to love what was going on under Michael Penix, even though they were winning games and surprising people, I feel like, this year before Michael Penix went down with that injury. But I feel like going forward, when you really break it down, looking at these head coaching positions and the head coaching jobs and what's going on going forward, I do think that the other 3 jobs are a lot more desirable for a young head coach than these 3 jobs necessarily, but I think out of the lower tier of the 3 that the Atlanta Falcons and it's hard for me to say. You see the Saints stuff. I know you guys can't see, but like in front of the desk, this is a Saints flag right here. Got the signed Cam Jordan jersey above my head with Drew Brees' autograph on it. You know, we got Drew Brees right here. We got a Brandon Cooks card in front of him. We got Shenron with a Saints helmet on. I'm a diehard Saints fan. If I haven't made this clear on this show over the past year or 2 years or so, but if I'm gonna sit here and be completely honest with you guys, I do genuinely believe that these head coaches that the Atlanta Falcons position is a very desirable position if I'm a head coach. If I'm, I believe that was one of the places, if I remember, that Kevin Stefanski was talking to. If I'm a Kevin Stefanski, if I'm a possibly, if he gets head coaching interviews, if I'm, a Cliff Kingsbury, if I'm a Mike McCarthy who might be looking back to get into the NFL, if I'm, looking for a team that is maybe just a quarterback away or a quarterback whisperer away, because Michael Penix is on that tiptoeing line of can he be somebody who wins you games? I think that Atlanta Falcons head coaching job is a lot more desirable than a lot of people think it is. I really do. I'm very interested in that head coaching position. I really, really, really am. Excuse me there, guys. Um, mm, excuse me. Give me 1 second here, guys. Sorry. Whew. Okay. Back to what I was about to say though. On the other hand, though, I do think the Atlanta Falcons job is desirable as this is the fourth most desirable job because in the other 3 jobs, you have one thing in each job that's just such a glaring highlight for a head coach to want to take over. And I'll start with what I think is the least desirable of those 3 jobs. And I think that's the Tennessee Titans, because I think overall as a roster, you have a lot of work to do in Tennessee. But I do think that, especially at the end of the year, we saw a lot of flashes of greatness out of Cam Ward, who was someone who I was not a big fan of. I will be completely honest. I hate watched Cam Ward a lot this year too, as well, with the Saints needing a quarterback and I a lot of the time going into the year, I wanted Cam Ward in a lot of different ways, and then and I knew it wasn't going to work out, and then as the college football season went to a close last year, I started to not like Cam Ward as he sat out of a bowl game. Miami somewhat fell apart last year with Cam Ward as a quarterback, and it just didn't really work out. And I was like, all right, I don't really love this guy as much anymore. I'm not really a big fan of him. I'm a big fan of Jackson Dart, but I think he'll end up in New York, which is exactly where he ended up. So I think the New Orleans Saints more likely than not, where they were sitting last year, I go, I think we're gonna draft, an alignment or something like that, which is exactly what they did. And I hope we get what I was hoping at the time was Shador Sanders late in the draft, which looking at it and the way that he's playing in Cleveland, I still would have been happy with, but I didn't necessarily love Shador, but I go, if we're going to draft someone late, I would love a Shador Sanders in the second round. I'd love a Jalen Milrow, in the second round. Those were the 2 guys that personally on my big board I was high on. We end up going with Tyler Shook. But back to what I was saying about Cam Ward. Cam Ward alone and the way that he played to finish this season makes that Tennessee Titans position for a head coach very, very, very desirable in my opinion, because you have a dude, it seems like, who has the ability that if you get the right pieces around him, if you draft well, if you sign well, if you develop well, and if you get the locker room behind your decision, you really have a division down there that's building to be a division that might, it seems to have been wide open for the past 10 years. Yeah, The Jaguars played really well this season and seem to be putting something together that I feel like that they might be good for the next few years. Obviously, we've had the Texans over the past 2 years really break out and be a solid team. You had the Colts be very good this year until Daniel Jones fell down with an injury. And then you had the Titans be the Titans, who were a 3-win team. Right now, they're sitting there, number two over or two or three overall, I believe. Um, and just in a spot where the Jets are at 2, Cardinals are at 3, the Titans are at 4. Titans are at 4 overall, and you're sitting at a spot where, you have room to build as the Tennessee Titans, and if I'm a head coach, I don't know why I'm not looking at Tennessee and Cam Ward and what I have to build down there in Nashville and be like, "Yo, let's get this rolling." Let's get this rolling down here in Tennessee and really find some pieces around this young talent, this raw talent in Cam Ward, and see where we could go here. So I do feel like that Titans position is a very, very, very desirable position. Now, when I do my top two, do I maybe have a little bit of bias because I live in the state of New Jersey and I listen to how desirable this New York Giants head coaching position is? There is a chance that yes, I have been corrupted by SNY Radio and and WFAN, and I've been corrupted by all of these programs around me telling me how desirable the position is, but I do feel like that the New York Giants is the most desirable position, head coaching position in football right now. And I think that's because you have the comfortability of you have your guy, you have Jackson Dart. And I said the same thing about Tennessee, but the better of it than Tennessee that you have is you have such a better roster, I feel like, for the New York Giants. And I feel like I have Tennessee at 3 and I have the Raiders at 1 because you have the number 1 overall pick in Oakland. So that's why I have the Raiders there at 2. No more, no less than that number 1 overall pick. But getting back to the New York Giants and getting on this rant that I want to, I think that no doubt it's the most desirable head coaching position in honestly all of sports right now. It's the most desirable available head coaching position, I think, in all of sports right now. I think obviously, if McDermott gets fired, if they lose, the Bills take that slot. I think if any playoff team gets a coach gets nixed outside of Tomlin, I think that they more likely than not take that spot. If Baltimore fires Harbaugh, I think they become the most desirable spot. But as of right now, I think it's the New York Giants. And I don't think there's a question about it. When you look at the New York Giants, really, and you break it down, yes, you have pieces like Wandell Robinson, who's a huge piece for the New York Giants, who's probably going to walk this year, whether that be due to cap problems or whatever you think it is, because I know people in WFA, but you may not have Wandell Robinson back, but whoever the new head coach is might want to bring him back. But you look at this roster, you have Malik Neighbors coming back off of a torn ACL. You have Cam Scatterbo coming back off of his broken ankle. You have Jackson Dart having the year he's had. You have had Brian Burns being arguably the defensive player of the year. You have Abdul Carter, who, yes, has definitely had an up and down season, but has definitely had his moments. You have Dexter Lawrence. You have Kayvon Thibodeau. You know, you have pieces. Yes, there might not be the pieces that, you gotta fix Rena. Paulson Adebo can't be your number 1 corner. Like, that can't happen. Um, Deontay Banks has to go. You've missed on draft picks with Joe Shane over the past few years. 110%. The roster is not the best roster in the NFL, and they just happened to have a bad year and the head coach had to leave. No, there's improvements 100% to be made to this roster. They need a number 2 wide receiver. Improvements to the offensive line 110% need to be made. Improvements to the secondary 100% need to be made. But when you look at the New York Giants roster, I think by far it is the most complete roster of a team that needs a head coach. It's a team that needs a head coach that already has an offensive identity, in my opinion. When you look at Cam Scatterbo and Malik Neighbors and Jackson Dart, and all you got to do is bring in a second guy, you could do that in the second round or in the first round if you want to take that 5 pick and trade it for some capital and go get another one and trade back to 15 and draft a wide receiver that you really like at 13 or 17 or something like that that you trade back to. There is so much opportunity of what you can do here as the New York Giants that I think there is no doubt in my mind that this is by far the most desirable coaching position in all of the NFL and in my opinion, all of sports right now. 100%. 100%, man. But, you know, I mean, I don't know cuz like who should be the Giants head coach? That's the next question. Like that's where I have to transition this conversation is to ooh, wow. That was rough. I just stumbled over so many words. That's where I have to now transfer this conversation to is yes, we say it's the most desirable position in all of the NFL, but who's going to take that spot? There's going to be a lot of people who want the position. Who is the right choice? You know, I think when you look at the field, um there's a lot of interesting choices. You have Kevin Stefanski, who just got fired from Cleveland. He's going to come in for an interview, which has already been reported. You have possibly Marcus Freeman, even though he said he wants to stay at Notre Dame. You're going to reach out still. You have who, if Harbaugh gets fired, do you want Harbaugh? If Tomlin gets fired, do you want Tomlin? Uh, I think Cliff Kingsbury just got fired in Washington. I think that's a very interesting possibility. Who is the right guy? And I don't think you guys want to sit here and just hear me ask the question of who is the right guy and just list names in a questionable voice. I think you want to hear who I think the right guy is. And in my opinion, let me start on this rant. I think you don't touch Bill Belichick with a goddamn 10-foot pole. And I've gone on that rant already before, so I'm going to leave it short. You could go back and listen to previous episodes if you want to hear that rant. But I think you don't go near Bill Belichick with a goddamn 10-foot pole. Not only do you not go near Bill Belichick with a goddamn 10-foot pole, I think John Gruden you don't go near with a goddamn 10-foot pole. So now that does shorten the pot a little bit. You have, when it comes to the dudes who haven't coached in a while coming back, you have dudes like Mike McCarthy, who is really, in my opinion, your top candidate. And then I think you have to look at coordinators and Stefanski. Is Stefanski your best option? I don't know. I don't necessarily love what I saw out of Kevin Stefanski in Cleveland. Um, I had uh looked this up and saw this before, and then funny enough, had seen it in a clip from Stephen A. Smith. I believe it was this morning, actually, where he started screaming. He started doing it. Stephen A. The Cleveland Browns and Kevin Stefanski. Oh my God. As I just get an alert of another coordinator that I think very much who has insane ties to the New York Giants, who I think is very high on the list of possible next head coaches of the New York Giants. But reports have just come out that the Giants have requested permission to also interview Lou Anarumo, defensive coordinator of the Indianapolis Colts, for their head coaching position. So that is someone who like I said, has been interviewed on the past 2 cycles, has had ties to the Mara family and the New York Giants, has coached for the Giants before as I believe it was a defensive backs coach, if I remember correctly. So that's a name definitely to look out for in this search, who I think is at the top of the list. Who I think the best candidate is, in my humble opinion, as someone who has never been near an NFL front office, who has never been near an NFL locker room. The closest connection I have is a family friend, knows um, Coach Campanell down there in Jacksonville, is the closest I am to a locker room or a front office in the NFL. Is 2 text messages. That's the closest I've ever been, guys. So in my humble opinion, who do I think? should be the NFL or should be the next head coach of the New York Football Giants. I genuinely think it should be an offensive head coach. I think it should be somebody who could develop Jackson Dart, or who could help in the development of Jackson Dart and Cam Scatterboo and Malik Neighbors and this team that is incredibly, incredibly young. And I think when I look around the NFL, the best option for that, and it's gonna hurt people for me to say, it's Mike McCarthy. Because I thought about it. I'll call myself a hypocrite because I was against Mike McCarthy for the first couple months. I was very much against Mike McCarthy. Um, because I didn't see the development side of Mike McCarthy, but then I thought back to Mike McCarthy's previous coaching stints, and it's young Aaron Rodgers and young Dak Prescott. They have both developed into something great. Now, whether you think Dak Prescott is a winner, and that's the big argument about Mike McCarthy too, is Mike McCarthy hasn't really won the big one. He only's got the one Super Bowl that he's got with Green Bay, that he won with a young Aaron Rodgers and Donald Driver and Charles Woodson and Clay Matthews and AJ Hawk and James Starks and BJ Raji, and I could go and on of people who are on that, and Greg Jennings and great NFL players who are on that Green Bay Packers Super Bowl roster. It's absolutely stacked, don't get me wrong. But don't you dare tell me that Mike McCarthy is not hand in hand in the development of Aaron Rodgers and that team and that offense, and does the same thing in Dallas with CeeDee Lamb, with Dak Prescott, and was able to win games, was able to make the playoffs. Yeah, he didn't maybe make no NFC championships or anything like that with that team, but he did win a playoff game, if I remember correctly, with that team. He won a wild card game. And now you see Dak Prescott is leading the league consistently. The Cowboys have one of the best offenses in the league, and that's behind the arm of Dak Prescott. So I do honestly, I love the idea of bringing in Big Mike to try to help the development of Jackson Dart, Cam Scatterboo, Malik Neighbors, and really turn this offense into an absolute weapon. I think Big Mike can draft correctly and bring in, an offensive lineman, a good offensive lineman in the first round, and a good wide receiver maybe in the second or third round, that he was so good at, helping, being able to find in Green Bay and in Dallas over his time there. He found pieces like a Kavan Turpin who have been big for Dallas, and little pieces like that who over the years have developed into these small number two, number three type of receivers that the Giants are really looking for right now. So in my opinion, that is who I think the New York Giants should hire. I think Mike McCarthy's the best option, guys. I genuinely think it. I genuinely believe it at this point. I think Mike McCarthy is the best option for the next head coach for the New York Giants. I do think with that report now, I do think that it's going to be Lou Anarumo. So prepare yourself, Giants fans, for it to be Lou Anarumo. But I love the idea of Mike McCarthy being the next head coach of the New York Football Giants. I love it. I love it. But that's all I'm going to do talking about the bad teams. I'm going to leave the bad teams there because it is time. 32 teams started this run 18 weeks ago. 18 weeks ago, we were all in the same boat, 0-0, kicking off the NFL season with one goal, the Lombardi Trophy. And now 14 remain. 14 teams remain. 7 in the NFC, 7 in the AFC. And those 14 teams' hopes and dreams begin this weekend. They come to fruition this weekend. They are that much closer to their dream of hoisting a Lombardi Trophy this weekend with the beginning the 2026 NFL playoffs in the wild card round, and we begin with a barn burner on Saturday afternoon between the Carolina Panthers and the Los Angeles Rams in Carolina. Um, okay. I have a lot of opinions about this game. I have who I think's gonna win, who I think's gonna lose. I got a lot of opinions. Um, I think this game is very interesting. I do have to say it. I think a lot of people are already forgetting that what was it 4 weeks ago? I have the game written down here. I have the date. Um, I just don't. I didn't write down what week it was for some reason because I'm stupid. November 30th. What is that? 4 weeks ago? What is that? Week 14? That we had this exact matchup. The Carolina Panthers, the Los Angeles Rams walked into a 6-6 Carolina Panthers team and lost in Carolina. Matt Stafford threw 3 interceptions. Don't get me wrong. The Los Angeles Rams turned the ball over a lot. But I feel like a lot of people talking about this game are forgetting that like we have already seen this game happen in Carolina. And the Rams didn't win the game. Yes, are the Rams the better team, but the Rams didn't win the game. So I just want to say to everybody, don't necessarily write the Panthers off. Do I think the Panthers are going to win the game? No. I want to preface that. As I sit here and started defending the Panthers, do I think the Panthers are going to win the football game? By no means do I think the Carolina Panthers are going to beat the Los Angeles Rams on Saturday. But I think when you look at the lines, when you look at the DraftKings lines, you have you have the Panthers getting 10 whole points, 10 whole points in a playoff game at home. Don't get me wrong. I do think the Los Angeles Rams are a very good football team. In my opinion, I think Matthew Stafford is more likely than not the MVP of this NFL season. But to say that the Rams are going to march into a stadium that they already lost in and manhandle the team, I think is a very bold statement. I think a lot of people are very much underrating this Panthers team. This Panthers team has won a lot of close games. They're 7-3 in close games. They have a -2 turnover differential, which is tough to see. But, they've caused turnovers. Like I said, they had 3 turnovers in a game against the Rams 4 weeks ago where they forced Matt Stafford into 3 turnovers. You had Bryce Young play well. And now you're going into a game where you just, you're coming off a loss. You got scared that you might have just, lost the chance of your division. You were dressed up in Atlanta Falcons gear practically on Sunday because you lost your game on Saturday for the Carolina Panthers. So you feel this new breath of fresh air where you know how fragile this is as the Carolina Panthers, and I feel like that's a chip on their shoulder. So I think a lot of people are very much underestimating how close that this game is going to be. I think the Carolina Panthers honestly keep this one close. I think the defense steps up. I think they're going to come into this game with a lot of confidence looking at the film of what they did well last time against the Los Angeles Rams. I don't think they're going to cause 3 turnovers again, but I think that they're going to get in the face of Matt Stafford. I think they're going to play some good defense. I think JC Horn and the rest of that team is going to really be able to get after the quarterback, make Matthew Stafford uncomfortable, and make this a close game. I do have the MVP, and Kyron Williams. Obviously you have Devontae Adams coming back as well. You have Puka Nacua, who's guaranteed to have 12 receptions for 60 to 70 yards every goddamn game. So it's hard for me to pick against the Los Angeles Rams in this preview of a game, but I think a lot of people are counting out what the Carolina Panthers and Bryce Young are going to be able to do. Xavier Legette, um, you know, uh, Rico Dowdle, and that Carolina Panthers team, I think is a lot better than or is able to play this Rams team a lot closer than a lot of people feel. But I'm gonna take the Rams, don't get me wrong, but I think this game is gonna be a lot closer. If I were betting, I'm gonna take the points, like more likely than not, but I would take the Rams outright. But I love I Panthers plus 10 is crazy. I think that is absolutely insane. I think that is insane to me. Like, that is absolutely insane to me. And then on Saturday, the night game, we relive a classic rivalry. We get the Green Bay Packers playing the Chicago Bears in Chicago, two teams that have split. The Chicago Bears won the most recent matchup against the Green Bay Packers in that slow game with Malik Willis starting, where they got the onside kick late. It heated up in the second half. But um, yeah, I think this is going to be a close one. I think this is just going to be another Packer Bear rivalry game where it's going to be a close game no matter what. The Packers are favored by 1.5 here. I personally think the Packers are going to run away with this one. Yeah, they haven't been playing great recently. The Bears have been on a run. They got the ninth best offense, or they have the ninth offense, and they're ninth in points, is what I was trying to say. Uh, as of right now, they 7-4 in close games. You know, they have the best turnover differential in the league. That's really what's going to make the difference. Can this Bears defense step up and force Jordan Love to make mistakes while Caleb limits them? Is what's going to be the difference maker of this game. The reason why I lean towards Green Bay is just Caleb Williams' big game history in college. He tends to shrink. He tends not to play well in big games from what I remember, from what I like from my memory. Caleb Williams very much shrinks in the big moments. And I just have the feeling he's gonna do it again. So I'm gonna take the Green Bay Packers to upset the Bears in Soldier Field and you know show the Bears that they might own them still for a little bit here um, in this playoff matchup on Saturday night. On Saturday night. Then Sunday. Sunday's the best. Obviously, Sunday is the big slate. We got three games. Buffalo, Jacksonville at 1 o'clock, I think, is going to be the best game out of the whole playoff slate. I'm taking Buffalo out of this one over Jacksonville, but I think it's more of a toss up than a lot of people think. Jacksonville's just been so hot recently, and the Bills have not been playing well. Um, so I don't know. I'm gonna go with Buffalo because I think Buffalo. If Buffalo they have, I think it's a must win for Buffalo and Sean McDermott. If I'm gonna sit here and be honest, so that's why I'm gonna pick Buffalo because again I think this is a must win for the Buffalo Bills and the Jacksonville against the Jacksonville Jaguars. Well, the Jacksonville Jaguars going into the year, I don't think a lot of people expected them to even be here. I think even halfway through the year, you maybe saw them making the playoffs, but nobody saw them winning their division. While Daniel Jones before obviously, the Daniel Jones injury happens, but before the Daniel Jones injury, I think a lot of people thought the Colts were just going to keep running over that division. And but now you sit here and you look at the Jacksonville Jaguars who have done exceptional things. Trevor Lawrence has thrown I want to say it's almost 16 touchdowns over the past 4 or 5 weeks. They've just been doing some ridiculous things offensively with him and Brian Thomas Jr. is finally getting going, and ETN has become this workhorse back that I never thought he'd ever become. If I'm going to be completely honest with you, he's proven me wrong. Year in and year out, week in and week out, ETN has proven me wrong. I thought Tank Bigsby was going to take over that position this year. They go, no, trade him away at the beginning of the season. And ETN has just been absolutely unreal this year. That defense has done exceptional things this year. Josh Hines Allen has had a great season. So it's hard for me to pick against that Jaguars team who has been on a very big run. But I think this is one of those moments where playoff experience and just being there before really comes into play. And Josh Allen knows how important this game is on the road in a warm weather where he's going to feel good. And, he's not going to have to deal with that Buffalo weather that he usually has to deal with as much as it's an advantage for them. Give me the Bills. Give me the Bills. Give me the Bills. Uh, San Francisco Philly is definitely interesting because Philly is good at just holding teams down and choking them down this year and keeping it low scoring and winning games that way. But I think the 49ers are just too hot. I have no other way of saying it. I think that team is just too hot. Yeah, the Seahawks cooled them down, but if CMC can get going in Philly, that's all they really need. That's all they really need. So I'm going to take the San Francisco 49ers in that game, getting 4.5 as well. So I like the cover there too. Uh New England, LA. Sorry, Herbert. Sorry, Herbert. I hope they get the upset. I think that one could be a really good game. I think they could surprise many. I think every game this weekend is going to be extremely close. I genuinely do. I'm very very excited. But I'm gonna take New England in that one, getting the points. Um, I'm gonna take the money line. Obviously, when I bet, I'm a money line guy. If I take spreads, I take the underdog spread sometimes, depending on it. But like, yeah. Uh, and then Houston, Pittsburgh, again a toss up. But like my opinion might change as the week goes on. As of right now, I'm taking Houston, but by the time Sunday comes, my opinion could very much change on that game. I could take veteran presence in that game by far, but I just don't think that um the Pittsburgh defense, Steelers defense, is really gonna be that great against the Houston Texans. I mean, something that is out of the ordinary for the Pittsburgh Steelers is their rush defense is a lot worse than their pass defense. And Houston is not a big running team. So I think that works in the favor of the Pittsburgh Steelers. So this one's a toss up to me. As of right now, if you're going to ask me as of the moment, I'm going to take the Houston Texans. But my opinion could very, 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 very much change. Um, but yeah, uh, I mean, going into it, looking at the whole playoff bracket, I could go through it all for you guys. I personally think that if you guys want to hear it, my Super Bowl prediction for the year, looking at the playoff bracket now, beginning of the year, I had Packers Bills. As of right now, it is Rams Bills, is what I've decided on, is my Super Bowl prediction. So you guys could 100% hold me to that. But um, the reason I'm picking the Bills in the AFC is I think without a doubt that this is the Bills' opportunity. I think the window has never been more open for the Bills. And yes, I do agree with what many people have been saying that this, even though it being their best chance, this is the worst Bills roster that they have had while they've had this window of opportunity for a championship with Josh Allen. But I think the window is no more open now than it will ever be in the AFC, with a lot of young quarterbacks in the playoffs this year, with Bo Nix with only with only one playoff game under his belt, with Drake May in his first playoff start, with Justin Herbert with only one playoff win under his belt, Trevor Lawrence, this being his first playoff start. You have a lot of opportunity here if you're the Buffalo Bills. So I choose to believe in the Bills, and I think they will get the job done, and that's why I have them out of the AFC, and I have the Rams out of the NFC. I think they're the best. I think they're the best team in the NFC. I think it's that simple. I think the Rams are the best team in the NFC. The way that Matt Stafford has been playing, the way that they Puka Nacua plus Devontae Adams adding to that offense has just been absolutely unreal. Kyron Williams, Blake Corum have been a two-headed monster all year, and that defense and that pass rush have been one of the best in the league all year. And I think that that will help propel them to the big game in Santa Clara. So that is why I have a Bills Rams Super Bowl. And if you want me to predict a winner as of right now, I will say Josh Allen gets his job done and gets the Bills there for Super Bowl after being 0-4, and the Buffalo Bills are your Super Bowl champs. But that is all I got for you guys today. Let me know what you guys think, please, about the lighting in the clips and stuff like that. Um, Sorry about my voice today. Getting over some sickness, so definitely raspiness. I hear it in the voice, so I apologize for that today. But thank you everybody for tuning in. New year, new content. We are starting this week. Um, Now I haven't decided yet. It's going to be on Fridays, so stay tuned for Friday. I don't know if I'm going to do it on TikTok Live or if I'm going to do it here on YouTube, but we are going to start doing pack openings. I really enjoy opening football cards and stuff like that. So I decided that why not? You know, card community has been getting pretty popular. I enjoy opening them personally. So why not share that love of cards with you guys and be able to share that with every Friday opening, a box or every other week maybe opening a box for you guys on live, seeing what we can get and then maybe um if that develops into a nice series there, we could start doing some giveaways of some of those bigger cards that I necessarily don't need that I've maybe pulled before or don't want for my own collection that I could give away to you guys as my fans and really hopefully start to build this fan base up more and really build a community here with the log show. I'm looking forward to a big year here in 2026. So thank you guys all for being with me through these past years. This one's going to be a big one. So stay tuned to everything coming out so far. You see it with the studio lights. We're making small improvements here and there. So thank you guys for being with me through this journey the whole time. I really, really, really appreciate it. I will see you guys all next week with the NFL divisional round. Peace out.